with a Spanish interpretation of today's presentation. And our topic today is going to be Bryn Mawr Park funding, specifically around ESSER funding. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about Title I funding.
Buenos días. La señora Williams ha dicho, yo soy Sandra Chatler del Enlace Familiar y voy a estar traduciendo nuestra reunión hoy. La conversación hoy se va a tratar sobre el financiamiento de ESSER y un poquito más como sobre qué se hace con esos fondos y qué estamos haciendo en la escuela. Y bueno, vamos a comenzar.
And then we do have some in-person participants today. And so since we are using a concurrent format, just know that we'll kind of be shifting some of the conversation back between our in-person and then as well as camera focus.
Sí, tenemos personas en asistencia en persona y también virtualmente. Hay veces que vamos a tener atención dividida y adicionalmente para que sepan que estamos grabando esta presentación.
Okay, all right. So first we're going to start by talking a little bit about, I want to go ahead and switch this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We got our tech support helping us out. Oh, there we go. Talking about, so what is ESSER? So ESSER is an acronym standing for our Elementary and Secondary Emergency Relief Funds. Basically, in response to COVID, federal government allocated funding specifically as an emergency response to help support children for the impact that COVID had on access to the in-person schooling as students would have traditionally had.
Para comenzar, la definición de qué es ESSER. ESSER son fondos de ayuda de emergencia para escuelas primarias y secundarias que sucedieron por el gobierno tratando de ayudar con las pérdidas que hubo y el afecto que hubo en la educación debido a COVID. Las cerraduras y diferentes tipos de enseñamiento. Entonces esos fondos nos dieron para mejorar cualquier lugares donde necesitan ayuda.
So originally it started as CARES Act money, which funded everything more for health and safety reasons. So things such as gown covering, shoes covering, face shields, hand sanitizers, and masks for the school community. As it evolved to ESSER, the focus was more on student academic access as well as social emotional wellness.
Inicialmente los fondos en un nombre diferente se usaron más para cosas físicas como las coberturas, los guantes, las máscaras, cosas así que hacían falta, pero entonces la evolución es que después los fondos han sido más para ayudar en los lugares a donde necesitamos ayuda socioemocional y académico debido a la COVID.
Okay, all right, so we'll go ahead and switch the slide. So first I want to take us back to 2019, actually before March 2020, and looking what the dynamics of a traditional Bryn Mawr Park classroom looked like. In this picture, we have multiple adults who are instructional staff working with children. We have lots of we've got a fourth teacher in there as well. We have groups of students working closely together. Students have hands-on materials to do their learning. And this is just one part of what a school day looked like for children. So it was a lot of close quarters, a lot of time together, no separations or no barriers, no face masks. So this was pre-pandemic what instruction looked like for our children and students.
Sí, primero vamos a mirar aquí es una foto sobre lo que es la enseñanza o una aula como lucía antes de la pandemia. Hay varios grupos de estudiantes sentados cerca uno de los otros. Hay 3 o 4 instructores en el aula que están trabajando con varios grupos, están usando manipulativos de aprendizaje práctico. Todo el mundo, no hay división, no hay, y hay varias personas en el aula.
All right, and then we had the pandemic. Go ahead and switch. And this is what education turned to. So Bryn Mawr Park, Fairfax County, the first day off was March 13th, 2020. I will not forget that day because I stood in the parking lot letting all of our fourth graders know who showed up early that morning to go to Jamestown field trip that it had been canceled. So that is forever in my heart. But this is what education looked like for the remainder of the 2020 school year.
Entonces, marzo 13 del 2020, esto fue el comienzo de la pandemia y cómo la educación cambió y empezó a lucir así. Y la señora Williams ha mencionado que ella se acuerda que esa mañana los niños que iban en su excursión a Jamestown llegaron a la escuela y hubo que decirles que no iban a ir y que y esto es lo que la educación empezó a lucir.
So don't change quite yet. But so during this time, teachers were committed to keeping morning meetings going. That was a practice that we had pre-pandemic to build community within classrooms. And our teachers provided that instruction in both reading and math using the online resources. Some of the challenges that we did have included student attendance. So some students did not participate in instruction consistently. Other challenges that we had just included it was a shortened time, especially 2020, for working with our students. And then the last part and the biggest part really is that students lost the opportunity for the hands-on learning. They were watching and they were listening, and it took us some time to try to figure out how to do it online, but so much of the teaching pre-pandemic had been hands-on tools and playing with to understand the math or playing with letters in order to understand the reading.
En este formato de enseñanza, como se ve, los estudiantes estaban usando computadoras y las maestras en ese momento estaban tratando de seguir haciendo cosas como las reuniones de las mañanas que hacían con las clases y enseñar la matemática visualmente, pero anteriormente habían usado muchos aprendizaje práctico y cosas manuales para entender la matemática, igualmente las palabras y las letras y la lectura. Y en este modelo era posible, ¿no?
Yeah. Almost, yeah. All right, let's go ahead and switch. So that was the remainder of 2020. Then in 2021, we started the year virtual in the same way with the option for families to choose whether they would like to stay virtual for the remainder of the year or come back in person.
Entonces, ese fue el 2020, este es el 2021, y cuando comenzó este año escolar, también teníamos todavía estudiantes que eran virtuales y también había la opción de regresar en persona.
And for those families that return to in-person, it's quite the walk down memory lane, isn't it, Kristen?
Yeah.
It's hard to believe it's real. But for those families that did return in person, we did end up having some rolling. We had 8 first days of school that year because we had students rolling into the in-person. It did come with high and very strict COVID protocols, including a requirement of 6-foot distancing between students as well as between teachers. It required face masks. It required shields between teachers and students. And it required a lot of sanitization of any materials that students touched and shared with others. So suddenly students had like their own belongings that we had to disinfect, regularly, including even book baskets, where like a library, we couldn't use the library because it was a shared material without books going through quarantine phase. So it impacted classrooms, it impacted library, it even impacted recess, where at that time 6-foot distancing was required between children.
En esa evolución, los estudiantes tenían que sentarse a 6 pies uno de los otros, igual en el aula que en el recreo, tenían división, tenían que todos los materiales que usaban los estudiantes tenían que estar sanitados, incluyendo las cestas donde se ponen los libros. Todos eran cosas que tenían que hacer para funcionar en el aula en esos momentos. Había muchos requisitos y muchas separaciones.
A lot of creativity from teachers to problem solve. Masks made it hard for voices to project. So a lot of our teachers, music in particular, were wearing microphones with the speakers so that students could hear. There was just a lot of thoughtfulness in using lots of visuals.
Mucha creatividad se tuvo que usar para que funcionara. Las maestras, por ejemplo, la de música tenían que usar un micrófono porque con las máscaras era más difícil oír las voces en el aula, en la distancia, y usando muchas cosas visuales para ayudarlos.
All right, and then so continuing on, so then as all students returned, end of 2021 and then the beginning of last school year, we started with 3 feet separation and student desks. And if you think back to the first picture where students were all around a group, right? We were still kind of in this phase of everyone facing forward, not opportunities to talk and have conversations with peers. We were still very careful around anything shared. You can see the water bottles. There was a duration of time. Our students weren't allowed to use drinking fountains except to refill water bottles. So, you know, even as we started to roll back into more what was normal, we still had in place some of the separation piece just to ensure our children's health and safety.
Entonces, en la evolución del aula, el próximo paso era los estudiantes estaban a 3 pies uno de los otros. Eso todavía una separación, todavía no se había regresado a lo que se vio en el principio, que eran los estudiantes cerca uno de los otros en grupos, sino todos mirando hacia adelante. Con su distancia todavía tenían que mantener su propia botella de agua, porque no se podían usar las fuentes de beber. Y todavía sanitación y cosas así.
So the good news is we're more back to a sense of normal, which is great. We're more back to where we once were. We are still thoughtful around COVID. We're still monitoring, and the impact of the quarantines, if you were exposed or close contact to somebody, is no longer, you know, the isolation period. If you're tested positive, it's only 5 days now, and they can come back with a mask days 6 through 7. So there are definitely, or 6 through 10, there are definitely changes that have been made that have allowed us to go back to a more normal and more instructionally driven school environment than what we were able to have during COVID.
Lo bueno es que hemos regresado a más normalidad. Ya la cantidad de tiempo que hay que aislarse o reportar lo de COVID ha minimizado. Pero en general hemos normalizado más.
All right, and there are 2 major areas that we'll talk about today where the focus is. The first is academics, and then the second is that social emotional piece.
So vamos a hablar de 2 áreas del impacto y del uno es el académico y el otro es el socioemocional.
All right, so pre-pandemic, so we did not have any SOL tests in 2020, they were canceled. But pre-pandemic, looking at our SOL scores in the major reporting categories, these were the overall achievements for our students in reading, math, and science.
Antes de la pandemia, en 2019, estos fueron como hicieron nuestros estudiantes en la lectura, la matemática y la ciencia. Entonces, en el 2020 no hubo evaluaciones por poblaciones obvias.
Okay, so there were no SOLs, and then spring 2021, so again, still in a very much separated state. You can see that all 3 content areas took a hit on student performance, specifically the areas of math and science.
Entonces, en 2021 sí hicieron los SOLs y pueden ver que todas las áreas se afectaron, especialmente la matemática.
And this is not unique to Bryn Mawr Park. This is Fairfax County trends. I work with Annandale Pyramids, and we are all seeing the same, as principals, we've all seen similar results and drops as a result of COVID. And it goes back to my belief is that lack of that opportunity to have the hands-on learning, which has been a foundation of how children learn. For those 2 in particular, math, like playing with materials, science, the experiments, and the hands-on kits are really hard to replicate.
Estos resultados no son únicos a nuestra escuela. Se ve dentro de la pirámide y se ve dentro del condado. Y se ve especialmente en la matemática y la ciencia, porque es aprendizaje práctico, con cosas manuales para la matemática y también las experiencias de ciencia no se pudieron hacer, eso se ve la.
So as we return to more of a sense of normal, our teachers have done amazing work. The fact that we were back up to where we were pre-pandemic with reading, again, despite some of those challenges, is amazing. And I mean, I commend our teachers because they put forth the effort. We have 2 reading specialists here at Bryn Mawr Park that support teachers with the intervention. It's been fabulous to see this, and they really deserve that celebration. I'll let you translate that.
Que hemos llegado en la lectura a como estábamos antes de la pandemia es excelente, y el trabajo de nuestras maestras que han hecho un trabajo extraordinario para llegar otra vez a donde estaban.
And then clearly math and science are 2 areas we're continuing to work on. Science, starting immediately after the pandemic as students returned back to the building. Our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers have committed to science CLTs regularly. And so there has been a lot of time and effort that we haven't necessarily used funding to support because we've covered it in-house using people that are in our school building, but we've done a lot of work in science as well. Math, again, has been an area of focus. We've continued to work on that, and this is our primary focus this school year for this reason, because our kids are not where they were before the pandemic, and our goal is to get them there and higher.
En las áreas de matemática y de ciencia. Y en ciencia, ya nosotros dentro de la escuela, en las sesiones que las maestras tienen colaborativas para mejorar y entrenar y analizar cómo están haciendo los estudiantes, ya estaban haciendo mucho para tratar de mejorar la situación. Y en la matemática, esa es una de las áreas que vamos a enfocar con estos fondos, porque todavía no hemos llegado donde estaban antes de la pandemia.
We also know that writing and social studies were impacted as well, writing specifically, and so that's an area of focus. However, our students don't test for writing or don't have like that type of data until they're 8th grade students. And so for that reason, it's not represented, and we are very aware that writing has been impacted as well, and that continues through our work to be an area of focus.
Y sabemos también que la escritura y la ciencia social también fue afectada, especialmente la escritura, pero los estudiantes nuestros no hacen evaluaciones en la escritura hasta el 8º grado, así no tenemos estos números, pero lo vemos y lo sabemos. Es otra área donde estamos tratando de dar ayuda.
Okay, so that was the academic piece. So first we went over why, and we kind of remembered like what happened. Here was the academic. Next, I'm going to share with you a little bit about the social emotional piece.
So esa era la parte académica, y ahora vamos a hablar un poco sobre la parte socioemocional.
Right, so those are the 3 areas we talk about social emotional, what that means.
Son las 3 áreas donde es cuando hablamos sobre lo socioemocional que vamos a hablar.
Yeah. So there are a couple of things that we noticed that we weren't specifically looking at data, but we really did see last school year. We had increased incidences between peers, arguments, hurt feelings, mean things being done to one another in areas of recess, and in particular in our cafeteria. That was a high area of need. We conducted a student focus group where we invited students to lunch, and we said, let's talk about what's happening in the cafeteria and what's happening. And overwhelmingly, kids are like, well, we know the rules, we just don't want to follow them.
Estos son los dominios a donde, habilidades, competencias, a donde hemos visto que los niños están pasando trabajo, especialmente en las relaciones unos con los otros. No llevándose bien, diferentes cosas así. Y tuvieron un grupo de enfoque con los estudiantes para preguntarles las opiniones de ellos. Y una de las cosas que ellos comunicaron es que se saben las reglas y saben lo que deben de hacer, pero no los quieren seguir.
Right. And a big part of that, when we asked why, like what's thinking, our students were sharing that, the classroom teachers, they knew the classroom teachers cared about them. And when they were in different locations, they didn't know or believe that other people in those spaces were caring about them in quite the same way.
Y una de las cosas que ellos comunicaron es que ellos sabían que sus maestras en sus aulas, ellos les importaban y querían bien por ellos, pero cuando estaban en otras áreas, la cafetería, otras partes de la escuela, no tenían esa misma conexión con los otros personal.
And so when the SEL, the social emotional screener, came into play, that helped us to collect some data from students. For kindergarten through second graders, it's the teachers who report based upon behaviors. For third through fifth graders, they share kind of their thoughts and their feelings in the screener. But our goal is that we would have 100, the blue bar would be at 100%. But this is where our students, have been kind of sharing out how they feel about belonging, feeling like they've got, those strong connections, or that they feel emotionally well.
Cuando los estudiantes hicieron la encuesta sobre lo socioemocional, estos fueron los resultados, y lo ideal sería que en todas las áreas, todos los dominios estuvieran a 100%, pero eso es lo que vamos a trabajar. Pero y se habla sobre cómo se habla, las habilidades y competencias, su sentido de bienestar, su sentido de pertenecer en la escuela. Esas son las áreas donde tenemos que trabajar.
So again, I think while we're not to 100% yet, we're really proud of the supports and the environment that children are sharing. They mostly feel really comfortable and good about. And areas that we wanted to take into consideration were skills and competencies, meaning what tools, do students know what to do when they feel angry? Do they know what to do when their friend is being mean to them or saying mean things? And then just the overall well-being, that they know how to calm themselves down if they're frustrated, or what to do if they're feeling overwhelmed. So these were kind of our two areas of focus.
Sí, estamos orgullosos de que en la área de apoyos y el ambiente estamos mejor, ¿no? Pero en las áreas donde todavía queremos darle a los estudiantes más herramientas, sus competencias y sus habilidades, si saben qué hacer cuando se sienten enojados, o cuando tienen un problema con otro estudiante, y su sentido de bienestar, ¿no? Esas son las dos áreas donde todavía seguimos trabajando.
Perfect. All right. So, and the good news is our students are doing well comparatively to Fairfax County overall. So, that I do attribute that to just our amazing community and the fact that we worked really hard to build and reconnect as a school community, not just children, but our families as well. So overall, we're doing really well, especially that sense of belonging.
Sí, lo bueno es que nuestros estudiantes están haciendo bastante bien, especialmente en comparación al resto del condado, ¿no? Y eso se atribuye a nuestra comunidad, ¿no?
And this has been the greatest increase between last school year when students took it and this school year. And this supports some of the work that we had done intentionally to rebuild those connections forward with our students.
Esa es el área donde hemos visto la mejoría más grande, y es desde el año pasado a este año cuando se hizo esa misma evaluación, y lo atribuimos a el trabajo que hemos hecho intencionalmente para que se sienten que pertenecen.
So there's some of the growth. We'll continue on. We'll go to some of the more fun stuff. Oh, that's not the fun stuff yet. But this is the overview of what we're going to talk about. These are the things that we have done to help start building our students back, and we'll continue to commit to continue building our students to meet those goals.
Sí, estas son algunas de las cosas que por arriba, ¿no? Que estamos haciendo con esa financiación para ayudar a los estudiantes a seguir creciendo en estas maneras y abordar los lugares a donde estamos faltando.
Okay, now let's go to fun stuff. Okay, back to pictures. I like the pictures because pictures are worth 1,000 words, right? So in order to work on the sense of belonging, the number one thing we did was we made sure to get more adults into our school building to be available. These are pictures of just some of them. We have an additional interventionist who focuses with children. She's an experienced retired teacher. I was able to finesse her to come back and join us this school year. And she is working with students in math and reading intervention support. So students who are below grade level, working with them to get them up.
Una de las áreas donde hemos puesto recursos es teniendo más adultos en el edificio para trabajar con los estudiantes. Aquí hay un ejemplo de algunos de ellos. Tenemos una especialista de intervención que trabaja con los estudiantes en matemática y lectura. Es una maestra calificada, retirada, que ha regresado y está trabajando con los estudiantes en grupo pequeño, uno a uno, en esas áreas.
Yep. And of course, with any intervention that happens, there are materials that we've had to purchase to help support the hands-on learning that we may not have had before. So we've purchased for our entire K-3 classrooms, the whiteboards, letters, whiteboards to draw and write, just to get that hands-on back and make sure that every child has access to the tools that they need.
Y claro, cuando hacemos este tipo de intervención, hay materiales que hemos tenido que comprar para que ellos tengan más materiales prácticos, como las pizarras y las letras magnéticas y cosas así.
In addition, we've hired additional staff such as student monitors to help with not only supervision of students, but they are also around and building relationships with children. So when we have a student who might need a break from the classroom and needs to take a walk, we have individuals who are there. They connect with children at lunch, they connect with children, they help supervise recess to give our teachers some planning time back. And we actually now have 4 student monitors who have joined our school team.
Otra adición son monitores o más personal en el edificio que pueden ayudar a los estudiantes si necesitan una pausa o necesitan ir a caminar fuera de una clase o una atención personal o también supervisan en el recreo para que las mesas tengan un poquito más tiempo de planeamiento. Y en este momento tenemos 4.
And then in addition, but not photographed here, cafeteria was a big area of concern last school year. It was impacting because they would then have to come, students would have to come to the office and we'd have to have conversations. They'd lose class time. We actually reworked and hired a second dining room assistant to help support with students. We were very intentional using that student feedback and found individuals with whom our children connect and really adore. And they sang her happy birthday last month. Like they went out of their way to make cards and sing happy birthday. So we're seeing the impact of having that additional staff around and available for our children.
Una área donde habíamos tenido dificultades era la cafetería. Otra cosa que tenemos son asistentes nuevas y adicional en la cafetería que tienen una relación buena con los estudiantes y ayuda con el comportamiento de estudiantes y ellos se sienten conectados a ellos. Por ejemplo, recientemente fue el cumpleaños de una de ellas y los estudiantes por su cuenta le hicieron tarjetas de cumpleaños y le cantaron feliz cumpleaños. Entonces es un ambiente mejor.
Yeah. Those are the stories that really tell what's happening, right? Okay, all right, we'll go ahead and next one. We are also running programs for our students before school. We've done that last school year and we've done it this school year. These programs are by invitation, meaning that we have data to support. Students either need help in the area of academics or they would benefit from that support in the social emotional wellness category.
Adicionalmente, estamos haciendo grupos el año pasado y este año antes de la escuela, como pequeños clubs para trabajar en diferentes habilidades y están identificados quizás porque necesitan ayuda en algo académico y están en uno de estos grupos, o quizás que haya una habilidad socioemocional que podemos trabajar con ellos en un grupo pequeño.
And they're intentionally designed to support students wherever their needs are. So it's a meaningful use of time with a trusted adult. And again, another person they can make a connection with in the school.
Y intencionalmente están diseñados para darles una conexión a esos estudiantes y específico para las necesidades de ellos. Y también darle otra conexión con otro adulto que está interesado en su bienestar.
And our next round of before school groups will begin February 2nd.
We only have one more and then it starts.
One more.
We're finishing the first round.
Finishing the first
and
round.
then we start.
Yeah, so another round, so you may receive an invitation, I do not know.
Sí, el próximo grupo de clubes en la mañana empieza el 6 de diciembre. Ahora acaba una sesión y va a comenzar.
All right, next one. As I kind of spoke to a little bit earlier, you know, a lot of hands-on materials. A big part for consideration was the spacing when we were required to do these 3 and 6 feet. And it's amazing how disruptive this can be when you're trying to space everything out. And so a huge investment was taking all of our projectors, because every classroom has one with a board that interacts. And so our projectors have been mounted up to the ceiling, which it was worth the money. As small of a thing as it seems, it was very necessary and has definitely been very helpful. And you can kind of see an example of the impact of that right now that the students all have access.
Una de las áreas donde recursos han usado es para montar las cámaras en el techo de las aulas, porque los proyectores, así como uno ve aquí, el que está en persona, en el medio del cuarto, ocupa mucho espacio y divide de la conexión y de la accesibilidad. Pero aquí en las fotos se ve algunos ejemplos donde están usando ese sistema sin el obstáculo para participar en aprendizaje práctico.
And this is another example of technology investment. We purchased classroom monitors for our teachers so that they could use it for small group intervention. Originally, it was because we could only fit so many children at a table and every child needed to see it spacing. And this picture was taken this week. So our students are still using it to make sure every child has access to whatever skill they're trying to teach online.
Otra área donde se han empleado los fondos son en monitores para las maestras. Inicialmente era para que todos los niños pudieran ver, pero también es para que cada niño pueda ver la pizarra y interactuar en su grupo pequeño.
Are the pictures helpful? Is it kind of fun to see it all in action? Okay, good. Another big investment that we have used with our ESSER funds is our professional developments for teachers, because when we think back to that graph, right, what we were seeing from our students before, it's not what we're seeing from our students now. And those third graders have moved up. And our kindergartners that the school closed down on are now third graders. So students are coming in with skills lacking that we haven't seen before. And so this is a picture of a lab site visit, and I'll talk a little bit about what that is, but I'll let you.
Otra área donde estamos, los fondos son en el desarrollo profesional de maestros de alta calidad. Y, por ejemplo, los niños están entrando con habilidades diferentes que anteriormente. Y si se piensan que los niños que se fueron en
Kindergarten is currently
kindergarten,
third grade.
ahora están en tercer grado. Y hay habilidades que no desarrollaron, que los maestros necesitan más entrenamiento para saber cómo ayudarlos.
Right. So we're using funding to pay for subs in order to allow for professional development opportunities. In this structure, the teachers plan a lesson together using what students know and they're struggling with. And then they go and one teacher implements it in the classroom and they reflect on how that went. And the goal is to build up the teacher's knowledge so they now have more tools to help the children back in their classrooms, and feedback was phenomenally positive. This one was a focus on the area of math because that was our biggest need. So we started with math.
En este ejemplo, estamos usando los fondos para pagar para sustitutos, para que las maestras puedan tener este entrenamiento. En este grupo son las maestras de un nivel de grado que lo están entrenando, y entonces una maestra regresa y lo implementa en el aula. Y en este caso fue en el área de matemática, y ha sido muy positivo lo que han dicho sobre los resultados. Eso es más bien dándole las herramientas a los maestros para efectuar esos cambios en su clase.
And the learning was led by our instructional coach, who's funded through Title I funds, which we'll talk about a little bit at the end, and then a math resource teacher who's at central office, but is also funded through Title I.
Y el entrenamiento fue con la especialista en los dos de título 1, la de matemática, que después se puede hablar sobre esos puntos.
Can we go back really quick? Sure. So that's just a picture of one. Other pictures that weren't nearly as fun. We have all of our kindergarten through second grade teachers are going through AVMR training, which is a math drilling down into individual skills, really breaking it down. And that's a very comprehensive learning. And our special education team will be engaging in letters training, which is aligned with science of reading. And a lot of those are like after school, college level type courseworks, but it is intense professional development. And we funded the training as well as the resources that teachers would need to actually teach with those skills back in the classroom, all also are coming from ESSER funds.
Eso fue uno donde se pudo poner una imagen, pero las maestras también han tenido entrenamiento de ABMR y también que no,
Advantage Math Recovery is what
es sobre la
stands for.
matemática. Y en adición también un programa que se llama La Ciencia de Lectura, que es, y esos entrenamientos son a nivel como de universidad y son más extensivos. No hay fotos, pero también está sucediendo y también se funda con este dinero de ESSER.
Okay, I think we're almost done. There's another one. So I know that there was a request back from the community of just like wondering, so what are ESSER funds being used for? Because it's a lot of money that not just Fairfax County, but all over the country, right, has received. It's like, what are you spending it on? So today you got a quick summary and got to see and hear some of the impact. And as a result of that request, in our weekly Mustang message, which comes out every Sunday morning at 9, I'm including most weeks. I didn't do it over winter break. Just little snippets of information along with a photo like we had today, just to kind of help our community be informed. So if you know of anyone or if anyone asks any questions and you're like, hey, it's in the newsletter, you can check out. And it's little segments because obviously it's a lot. But hopefully that has been helpful as well to kind of have a sense of at least how Bryn Mawr Park is choosing to use the money.
Sí, nos habían preguntado que les comunicáramos a la comunidad cómo estamos usando esos fondos. So, una de las maneras que lo estamos comunicando es en el mensaje que sale todos los domingos, que todos pueden recibir, todos reciben. Estamos dando información sobre cómo se está usando cada semana.
Okay. And then, so the last piece I just wanted to highlight, and this is just more of a for your information. You do not need to memorize any of this. This is the fun I get to have behind the scenes. ESSER is one budget or one chunk of money. ESSER is short term. It is expected to discontinue at the end of this school year because ESSER was an emergency relief fund.
Esta información es solo para que lo sepan, no es técnico, no, pero los fondos de ESSER son a corto tiempo y es solo para el apoyo para ayudar con las pérdidas de COVID, pero al final de este año ya no va a haber esos fondos.
Then we are also a Title I school, which means we get money for that. That's an annual qualification based upon the percentage of students that access free or reduced meals. So that is not discontinuing. It does change a little bit. And when we're publicizing, for families that need, the access to apply for free and reduced meals, we're trying to make sure our community is fully represented because that directly connects with the Title I funding. And Title I funding is what we use for things like for the family field trip, for parent nights where families come and do different activities like our technology night. That is Title I funded.
Los fondos de título 1, eso es separado y es basado en la cantidad de estudiantes que reciben comida a precio reducido en nuestra escuela, y esos fondos no se van y cambian como se usan cada año, y es solo para esos fondos son para abordar cualquier lugares donde hay huecos, vamos a decir. Y esos dineros los usamos para diferentes programas como las noches familiares, la excursión que se hizo recientemente el sábado en los museos, y esos fondos seguiremos recibiendo.
All right, and then the very last thing is, so on Monday, January 23rd at 6:30 p.m., I'm going to be, as I'm starting to plan for next school year and Title I funding, I would like an opportunity to get family feedback on what types of things might be beneficial to spend it on. So for example, the family field trip, we had a really high interest in that. Is that something we would like to commit some funds to every single school year and run similar ways? Do we want to look at ESSER funding has allowed us to have before school programs? We've never funded that with Title I before. So is that something we might want to consider like keeping going with our Title I funds? So I definitely want to get some feedback. So this is the opportunity to join me online or in person and just kind of share your thoughts and like, yes, keep it, or no, that we're okay with that going, or I have this great idea.
El lunes 23 de enero va a haber una oportunidad para las familias dar sus opiniones sobre cómo usamos los dineros de título 1. Quizás hay un programa que estamos haciendo ahorita como los clubs en la mañana que hemos pagado con el dinero de ESSER que queremos pagar en vez con el de título 1 para seguir haciendo el programa después que perdemos esos otros fondos, o quizás hay otros que no les interesa y no importa, pero la oportunidad que las personas nos digan, la comunidad nos diga cuáles son los programas que quisiéramos seguir, o otras ideas que pudieran tener que nosotros no hemos pensado.
And I'm pretty sure that is the last slide. Am I right? Okay. Whew. So I did a lot more talking than I anticipated, and we did start 10 minutes late. So, but if there are any questions, I'm available to answer any questions. Again, I know this is not necessarily the most entertaining topic to really talk about or learn about, and it's important. And I do hope that having a chance to see the pictures and the students and like see it is helpful to kind of understand who we are as a school community, where we were, what we've gone through, and how we're getting back to and even better than where we were pre-pandemic.
Gracias por asistir. Sabemos que hemos sido un poquito más largo de lo que esperábamos, pero si tienen cualquier preguntas, y es como nosotros vamos a seguir como éramos y como vamos a seguir haciendo en el futuro.
Really, that's it. If we just make sure attendance is signed
Y
in.
dos cositas que como estamos ya aquí,
Okay, yes.
esta
What?
semana, la próxima semana, el jueves, tenemos un evento que es los cuentos culturales, que los niños vienen a la escuela, después de la escuela, a oír cuentos en todas las lenguas. Tenemos padres leyendo cuentos en ruso, portugués, español, chino, japonés, inglés. Es un evento divertido que es el jueves de 6 a 7:30. Entonces, inmediatamente después del evento, bueno, la Asociación de Padres y Maestros van a tener su reunión que tienen a las 7:30. So va a ser al final a las 7:30 va a haber la reunión de PTA en la cafetería. So in English, next week on Thursday, we have our Celebrating Cultural Stories night, which is
funded by Title I.
Which is funded by Title I. And that is a night where students and their families are invited to come back and listen to bedtime stories read from various cultures in various languages. English, Japanese, Russian, Urdu, Arabic, all sorts of things. And it's a lot of fun, and it's from 6 to 7:30. And
bring them in their PJs.
Bring them in their PJs, and they're, you can try different classes and you can stay as long or as short as you're able. And immediately following our Celebrating Cultural Stories, PTA will be having their PTA meeting at 7:30. And that's it.